looking at each other.
Look at it.
Yeah, sure. It's
Hare Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. That was ecstatic. My voice is.
Was that all 108 verses?
Possibly more. One thing that came while chanting was just this fact that we're not these bodies. And but also, what does that mean? When somebody says we're not this body. And the first lesson of the Bhagavad Gita, it only starts in the second chapter. The whole first chapter is just setting the scene. And the first lesson is Dehi no swing yatha dehe kamari yoginam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatva muhati. And Krishna is saying that just as the soul moves within this body from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly the soul moves into a new body at death. And that a sober person, dhira means sober, somebody who's like, they're not bewildered by this change. So this is the very first thing that he says. I think it's very interesting. And that how Krishna's just giving this really logical kind of trajectory of thinking, where we can see how our body is changing. Even science has known that every 6 or 7 years, your body replaces every single cell in its body. So that means that every 7 years you have a new body with not one single cell that was there 7 years ago. So like, I guess you could say you reincarnated. And this also brings the question then, why are you the same person? If who you are is just some kind of connection of chemicals in the brain that have kind of come across by chance, and just the right combination has come and is given consciousness. So this is what materialists believe. So then how come I'm still the same person? I think that's a logical way of thinking. Or if I lose a limb, why don't I reduce in who I am if I am this body? So but Krishna says that we're not. And just as this body is changing all the time, then similarly with death is just a more dramatic change. And then he also says that Na janmate mriyate vagdachi nayam bhutva bhavita vanguyaha jonita sashvitoyam purano ahanyate hanyamane sharire. He says, for the soul is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, he does not come into being, and he will not come into being. So he's kind of covering past, present, and future. It means there wasn't a time in the past where you can say, there, he started. And now in the present, there will never be a time when there's a soul suddenly emerging that wasn't before. And then in the future, neither will that happen. Because the soul is eternal, unborn, primeval and ever-existent, primeval. It means it's like essence. It is it's very ancient. And it's not slain when the body is slain. So I think this is a very powerful meditation on, what does this imply then for us? We're not this body. And then also what kind of came up was this this analogy of Socrates, where there's this man sitting in a cave, and where these shadows are there, and there's a fire, and he can see shadows on the wall, but he can't see the people. So there's a whole beautiful kind of meditation on that, that means what is casting the shadow? What is there which I cannot go and see, but there's something casting the shadow? What is that? So, Prabhupada, he actually spoke very highly of Socrates. He said of all the Western philosophers, Socrates was the only one that was self-realized. That he actually had realization that he's not his body. Prabhupada pretty much, well, he didn't say, but a lot of the other Western philosophers, they didn't really contribute much philosophically. It's like really a lot of stuff going on there. I think they tried, but in my opinion, I did not really feel much substance in there, especially Socrates. I think he was really amazing. How he died was, I believe he was speaking out against the god worship, which was happening in Greek at the time. And they didn't really like that. I don't think he was condemning it, but he was saying there's more to it than just that, And they didn't like it because it was the established narrative, I guess you could say, and he was like counter-narrative. So they said, no, we will kill you if you don't stop. And he was like, what can I do? I can only speak the truth. So they arrested him, and so then he was a glorified philosopher, of Was it Greece or Athens? Athens is in Greece, isn't it? Yeah.
Greece.
So, some of his friends came and said, you know, we can bust you out of here. We've got a plan. We can get you out of jail. We've got a getaway card. We can take you to a distant country. You'll be fine. You can start over there. And then he responded. He said, all these years, I've been accepting all this praise from Greece. Why now that they're giving me dishonor should I now reject it? So he was like really fair, I think, in himself. It showed how detached he was, how he was ready to just accept whatever came of his own accord, and on his part he just did what had to be done. Dharma. And he did his duty. And whether good or bad comes, you know, we have to accept it, because this is how this world works. And you know, we can't, people be trying to be happy by reducing the suffering and increasing the happiness. But, and the 5-year-old Prahlad in the Bhagavatam, he says, what is it? I forgot the Sanskrit now. But he says that everybody in this world is endeavoring to increase their happiness and to reduce their suffering. But actually we see that one is happy as long as one doesn't try to be happy. And as soon as one's activities for happiness begin, immediately your situation of suffering arises. So this is like a bit of a dichotomy. You want to be happy, but to be happy you have to give up wanting happiness, and how do you do that? So it's a bit of a catch-22. But he's hitting a thing on the head, where he's basically, by trying to act on the bodily platform and adjust the duality that we are in, that's not the way to happiness, because actually real happiness is transcendental to duality. And it's not found in this world actually. So then Socrates, you know, when he was then given the hemlock poison to drink, he was describing, you know, then he asked the guard on the way, you know, can you give some tips about, you know, what's the best way to take it? And so he said, you know, walk up and down so the blood moves faster and it kind of acts quicker. So that's a good tip. And he's walking and he's describing, oh, I feel these senses are shutting down and this is happening in my body. And the people are amazed how peaceful and calm he was. Because he knew he cannot be killed. He even told them, if you want to kill me, you have to find me first. Because he knew, you've got my body, but you've not seen me. He had realization. That is somebody who knows he's not the body, who's realized it. Not just somebody who's got theoretical knowledge, but he actually lives it. He's on that platform. His consciousness is that, I'm not this body, I'm the soul. Fearless. Fearless. It's amazing. It's really amazing. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna starts with this as well. You're not this body. You're a spirit soul. And the nature of the soul is Satchitananda. It is eternal. It's full of knowledge and bliss. And we have forgotten that identity, or we've assumed all these other concocted identities. I'm this, I'm that, and all related to the body and the activities that we engage the body in. And you know, I'm a man or a woman, or African or American, or I'm a musician, or I'm an artist, or I'm a dropout, or I'm great, I'm a loser. It's like these are all designations. We're just like, and it's like labels. We're putting them off and putting other ones on. When you're a kid, you try on different ones. That's what they do. They're seeing what people are doing around them, and they're like, let me try that one. Put that hat on. Just like, I like it, I don't like it. Let me try this one, you know. And then when they kind of, you know, late adolescent years, they're pretty much trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to choose now? So if we are, I think a good way of parenting is trying to expose children to the idea of why not choose just being who you are, the spirit soul. So their knowledge of that is also required, but I think just understanding that is a great start. And and that way we can be truly happy. So the soul actually has nothing to do with what's going on here. But since we find ourselves in here and we have to deal with this world, we can't run away from the world. So then what to do? What to do? So now you have different approaches to spirituality. And you have people who just negate everything. They're like, no, just nothing. And then there's because any type of activity will just engage your consciousness in the external world, so you should just stop activity completely. So they try to do that. And it's a sincere approach, but they have to artificially restrain themselves to stop and do anything. Eventually stop eating and not even caring for the body. It can become very extreme. And like the Buddha, for example, he tried that when he was with this, they call them the Four, these ascetics, and the Buddha really took it to the extreme, and these guys were like, oh, that's too much for us, and they hit the road. And then what the Buddha found, they didn't feel like this really did it for him, because there's still something going on. So, and the Vedas, they say that the soul is ananda moya sat. It means it's pleasure seeking. The nature of the soul is to want to enjoy. It wants to feel pleasure. So, so that means you have to act. So now okay, what we're going to do? We have to act. We're forced to act. You can stop activity for some time, but it's going to burst out. So the Bhagavad Gita is basically directing us to rather engage our natural propensities, even though they might be conditioned and illusory and something that's temporarily acquired due to circumstance and body, but engage that for a spiritual purpose. And if we can engage that in a spiritual purpose, then those attachments to those activities get purified. Because now they're not being done for the purpose of sense gratification and self-aggrandizement. They're done for the purpose of something eternal and spiritual. And Bhagavad Gita explains that actually, if everything is dedicated for the pleasure of God, which is numerous, it is a charged word. And actually the last few weeks I've been thinking, how would one use this word in a way that, because when everybody hears God, it's like this thing that comes out, and everybody might be different. So when you even say that, how do you explain to somebody something that they already have preconceived ideas, and something that also can't actually be conceived? That's also another thing. You can't actually conceive it. So it's really interesting, but yet we are compelled to talk about God. So how do we do that? How do we want creative forum for talking about that? So one thing that came out of inspiration the other day when I was talking to some people was that that we all understand there must be some ultimate source from which everything comes. What the nature of that source is quite out of our reach, but one can understand that it must be the most attractive thing. And since we're attracted to be loved and also to give love, so there must be something which is perfect, which we can give love to, and which can receive our love and reciprocate with that love. So we can say, okay, let's say that is God. Let's say God is the source. God is, and we can call him the supreme lovable object. Now there is such a person who actually is completely worth any trouble you can imagine yourself putting through. Can you imagine such a person? I can't actually imagine such a person because it's inconceivable. But why can't such an inconceivable, sentient being exist? We go through trouble for each other. And the more love you have for a person, the more you're willing to go through for them. I mean, let's say for children, for example, God, they put you through so much. But you do it, you tolerate it, So just like a material example. So, so therefore, our activities can be dovetailed in service, to some divine purpose. And I'm just really scratching the surface here. One can have hours and hours of conversation about this. But the focus that I want to put on is that activity is determined as material or spiritual by the purpose on which it is applied. And the purpose which is applied. So if you are in a situation, let's say you have parents, or you have children, or you have a partner, or you have a job, or you have some social service, then to what purpose is one doing that? If one dives really deep inside, it's either one is doing it because you want to get satisfaction, or you're doing it because you want to give God satisfaction. And why I say God, and one might ask, why not your husband or your wife or your friends? And the reason is because if one deals with anything as if it is separate from God, you're dealing with the body and the mind, not the soul. Because you cannot perceive the soul if you cannot perceive it in relation to the source as well. Right? Otherwise you're in illusion. You might be here and you're like, okay, I can see you, but if you're in illusion about the presence of the sun, that's our illusion. but the sun is present here. You cannot see anything without relation to the sun. If there's no sun, then it's dark. You cannot perceive. So in the same way, the soul is on a spiritual platform. And the moment you see the soul, the moment you also see its connection to God and your connection to God, and you're actually on a liberated level then. Like Socrates, I believe was. And so, maybe it's quite a statement that would be up for discussion, but I think that the principle is that even then, serving others, if one really goes down to the root, actually is again about giving satisfaction oneself. That you have friends and you're maintaining friendship because you want to feel like you belong somewhere, you don't want to be lonely. So that motivation is still there. But it's not a bad propensity, it's just the motivation needs to be purified. So then for what purpose, do you have a friend? And ask yourself that question and go really deep into it. It's a really interesting line of thought in meditation. I think it's very powerful. And so when one wants to embark on such a spiritual journey, I think why it's maybe feeling a bit light, like what I'm saying, is because it first requires knowledge. There are three things which any pursuit, material or spiritual, requires. There should be, it's called Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana in Sanskrit, Sambandha, and they use these principles like in business. You go to business workshops, how to be a big businessman, and they teach you these things there too. And Sambandha means that knowledge which connects you to that thing that you want. In the spiritual case, it is I'm a spirit soul, and I'm eternal being, and I'm a part and parcel of the supreme whole. So like the sun rays in the sun. We're like just a signal sun ray. So we have the same quality as the sun, but quantitatively we're different because one single ray of sun can't express that energy or potency to the same degree as the sun can. But they're the same quality. So that's in the same substance. So it's a soul and Brahman, or and God. So there's some knowledge is required. And then there's Abhidaya. You should know what should I do to get what I want. What is the process? You have to have a process. You have to do something. You can't just sit. This idea of sitting and manifesting is some New Age rubbish. It has its limits. It has its limits. It does work, but it has limits. We are not limitless. I mean, we are forced to die. Nobody wants to die, so you have a limit. The body we have to go through that experience of death, rather say like that, because we don't die. And then you have to be a goal. You have to know what is it you're trying to attain so that you can measure whether you're moving closer to it or not. So that any three of these things are missing, you will not get where you want. So if you want to start a new entrepreneurial endeavor, these three things you got to have down. What is your ethos? What is your vision? How are you going to do it? And what is your goal? So these three things. So spiritual life is the same. So therefore, this is needed. So that's what actually the scriptures are about. Is giving you this knowledge. And not to tell you to do this, or this, but to say, especially Vedic, if you want this, this is the way to do it. If you want that, this is the process of doing it. Not that if you choose this and you choose this, you're better, and no, not like that. It's just that this is how you do stuff. This is how reality works. This is what especially Vedic literatures are about. Like you bake a cake. No, you tell me what to do, like I follow any scriptures, it's a scripture. It's a cake, it's a cooking scripture. Follow a recipe and you just mix stuff together and then it's like, it doesn't turn out what you want. And then, you blame something else. But no, it's because you don't know how to do it. You're trying to speculate and you're not following the process. We've just followed this process. It's been tested. Everybody who's done it, they've actually commented. You can comment, great recipe, works every time, kids love it. So the Vedic literature has been peer reviewed over millennia by self-realized sages and transcendentalists of all kind of walks of life. So that's powerful stuff. That's powerful stuff. Peer reviewed articles. Everybody wants peer reviewed is there, so there you have it. So
we should really put all these peer reviews up online though, because then we validate them.
Right.
It's all there. There's not
That's a good idea. Yeah. And whenever you look for a product online, you look for reviews and then you check. I think 3 stars is not enough for me. I need at least 4.5. So the Vedic literature shows that. Not to tell you what to do, but to tell you how to get what you want. So if you want, want to have the best sex ever, then there's a process that you follow. And you can even acquire a body in another planet which is actually much better suitable for enjoying that than this body, in this planet. But these bodies don't really have that much sexual capacity, power. Some people, they actually reach a limit. There's a limit to what this body can experience sexually, but they want more. Wow, that's a problem. Actually, when sometimes it starts getting really crazy, or people start going crazy because their desires burn them. It's like fire in your heart, it burns. So with the children, I was noticing earlier today is that my son, he wants the car, and he doesn't know where it is, and then he wants you to find it, but you're busy, and then he screams like, I want it now. It's burning inside him. He can't tolerate this unfulfilled desire. So this is what happens. Or if you want money or whatever this process is. So I think that is very powerful. I think anybody who's intelligent, they'll take advantage of such literatures. And I really intend to bring it, to this point. I mean, I don't prepare for the course with all inspiration, and I like to think that it's divinely inspired. But yeah, we happen to have this whole box of translated books which we have today, which there's some Bhagavad Gitas and some smaller versions of the books, some really amazing stories. And I think I'm going to end with one story from The Science of Self-Realization. It's one of my favorite books. It's a collection of articles that Prabhupada had written and some conversations. And this one's about liquid beauty, because this is our thing, not this body.
Not before you.
Let's go for it. So there was this young man, and there was this extremely beautiful young girl, and he was very attracted to her. And he approached her, and she wasn't interested because she could understand, a chaste woman can understand the consciousness of a man very easily. I think many women, when a man approaches them, they know what they're thinking. I mean, the main thing they're hiding it, but normally the woman kind of suss it out. They're like, okay, he's coming for that. So anyway, she could see that, and she could see he wasn't very like. So anyway, she didn't want him. But he kept pestering there. Sometimes men don't take no as an answer. So she thought, okay, she said, okay, I will agree to your proposal. So, in a month's time from now, at this time and place we can meet. And the man was very happy. He's like, yes. So she thought, she wants to give him something valuable. So she started taking really noisy. No, it's okay, we're almost done. She started taking really powerful purgatives and laxatives, and it came out of her mouth, it came out of the bottom, and she stored them all in pots, nicely kept. And after a month, she was completely emaciated, and those eyes sunk into the sockets of her skull, and skin turned blackish, and very thin and not beautiful at all. So then she went to the place, and this man was waiting there, and she came there, and this man didn't even recognize her. And she said, I'm here to meet this beautiful woman. And he said, yeah, it's me. And she says, what happened to you? He says, no, I just separated the ingredients of my beauty. And he says, well, what do you mean? Where is it? And he said, well, and she pointed into the pots. And when he opened it, he was horrified. And in this way, he understood. And by the saintly lady, he could understand what the quality of his beauty is that he was chasing. Bowel, mucus, stool, blood, bones. This is actually the content of our beauty. When we see a body, we're thinking, oh, this is actually what we desire. We're attracted to. So it's what we want to enjoy. It's actually what we want to like. Body's rubbing, and this is what you're trying to enjoy. So a philosopher thinks like this, and spiritualist understands like, wow, but the illusion is so powerful that you still go over it. After this story, it's not like I'm in another, it's because I'm in the illusion. So that's what the illusion does. But by thinking about this and by practicing spiritually, we can gradually become freed from this illusion. And then hopefully next time when I see it, I remember, I'm like, wait a minute, but this is not real. This beauty is not real. It's made up of these ingredients. And then maybe I can think, wow, maybe I'm attached on the body platform right now. I'm not on the spiritual platform because I'm seeing it like this. If I was on the spiritual platform, I wouldn't be seeing the body like this. I would be attracted to the soul inside, which is actually the beauty. It's actually the real beauty. We love each other, but as soon as the person dies, a lot of people don't really want to touch the body anymore. But that thing that you interacted with is still lying there. But that soul, which you never saw, is gone. So that's actually where the attractiveness came from. Interesting. So I think hope I don't kill your appetite with that, but it's transcendental knowledge, right? Hopefully it will bring the blessings there. But that doesn't mean we can't appreciate the beauty. I think I want to say that as well. It is still beautiful that these things have come like this, but we can appreciate this beauty as being an expression of God's beauty. And it ends there. Not that you go and now you want to enjoy it for yourself. That is the illusion. But we can appreciate, wow, it's amazing. The whole world is beautiful, it's amazing. It's God's creation, it's coming from, there's an artist who created this. You see a beautiful painting here. Great artist. Look at the sunset, something like that. There's intelligence behind it. It's not by choice that this stuff happens. It's chance cannot produce intelligence. It is statistically unsound. It like that. So, yeah, I didn't intend to say so much, I apologize, but sometimes it happens like that. So,
why don't you open the book?
yeah. So maybe when they get ready, we say prasadam, and I can start reviewing the books. And if anybody has a comment or a question also, it's nice if somebody wants to say something.
Yes, it
Yeah, it depends on. We're all trying to enjoy it to some degree or another. Enjoy the beauty that we see around us. So I like to gauge it in the sense of to what degree are you exploiting the other in order to get that enjoyment? Or to what degree are you being exploited by someone else? And to the degree of exploitation that is there, it shows that there's a tinge of something that's less than ideal. Because there's some exploitation going on. Whether it's to eat certain food, you're not to kill creatures because you're exploiting that creature by killing it to eat it, for example. The same between men and women. There's a degree to exploit the other or not. So I use that as a gauge. To what degree am I exploiting the other person in order to get my pleasure? And then I try to minimize the exploitation, and that helps to maximize the service.
Yeah. It's a nice thing as well. Funny thing, they said when a boy comes to a girl and says, I love you, actually he's saying this, can I please gratify my senses with you? And then the girl, when she says back, I love you, then she says, okay, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. No, let's meet halfway. I'll give some, you can give some, and we get what we want. So that's like that. I guess the ideal is where when you come, you're just there to give 100%. And then you're meeting with a person who's also there to give 100%. And nobody has to think about what they can get, it's only about what they can give. And I think that's exceptional, and that thing is not really found in this world. And if you find in this world, actually it's not this world. Because you find somebody who's also in the spiritual world by their consciousness. This is spiritual consciousness. So I think that's quite exceptional. Very, very rare. It's
It's very dangerous to experience that, because then after that, everybody else's association is inadequate. It's tough.
I think even in that sense, if somebody, like a certain person, they meet somebody who's like in an inferior position in the sense that they're materially contaminated, but the saint is spiritually purified, they still see the soul, but the soul never gets contaminated. So they just see a soul which has acquired a certain material designation. That's what they see. So they're still seeing the soul. And they're dealing with the soul. But they're just talking through that designation because that's how they are relatable. Because that's what they are. They think they are. So they talk through, but they're talking to the soul. And they're very, very expert in talking and seeing you where you're at, and talking to you where you're at, but actually they're talking to the soul. They're not talking to your false ego. So it's very powerful. So I think even in that sense, but it is important to have association of people who are on the same frequency as you, because we need inspiration, especially since we're not there yet. So we need the support.